Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start in a moment. If you wish to speak to the Commission on any item, whether agendized or not agendized, we would appreciate if you would fill out a pink card that's at the podium and turn it into staff, and we will call you at the appropriate time. So actually, officially, we will call the meeting to order, the regular meeting of the Planning Commission of West Covina for Tuesday, April 9, 2019, at a couple of minutes after 7. I will lead the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. If you would rise and join me in the pledge and remain standing for a moment of silent prayer and meditation. And Mr. Director, roll call, please.
Commissioner Holtz? Here. Commissioner Hing?
Here.
Commissioner Kennedy? Commissioner Jaquez?
Here.
Chairman Redholz?
Here. Commissioner Kennedy informed me over the weekend that he would not be able to make it tonight, so he has an excused absence. We will move on to the approval of minutes for our regular meeting of March 12, 2019. Anyone have any changes to make to those minutes? Hearing none, those minutes are approved as presented. Next is oral communications. This is the time when any member of the public may speak to the Commission on any matter within the scope of duties assigned to the Commission relating to non-agendized or consent calendar items. I have no consent, I have no oral communication cards, so yes. Yes, please, Mr. Carmody, come up, please. Thank you. Introduce yourself.
Good evening. To observe and to thank you all for your community service. It's a very interesting assignment for me. It's very terrific to be part of such a proud organization and with such a great staff. Compliment to Jeff for all the great work that he and his team do. I think if you care about urban design, if you care about economic development, much of that core work is happening right here with you, and I just wanted to be here tonight to introduce myself and to watch you in action and to say, if ever I can be of service to you, please call me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and welcome to West Covina. We look forward to working with you, sir. All right. We have 3 public hearings on the agenda tonight. The first one is item number 2, which is a conditional use permit, number 19-02, a categorical exemption. The applicant is Mark Frasina at 420 North Azusa Avenue at the Varney Center. Mr. Director, who will be presenting the staff report?
Our planning assistant, Renee Aguilar, will be presenting that.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and fellow commissioners. Tonight I will be presenting conditional use permit 19-02. The applicant is requesting to allow for recreational use, more specifically axe throwing. The subject property is located at 420 North Azusa Avenue within the Varney Shopping Center. The property is zoned commercial per the general plan designation. The applicant is requesting the operation of a 2,077 square foot recreational center in an existing tenant space within the Varney Center. The business hours will be Monday through Sunday from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. The anticipated average length of stay is 1 to 2 hours, depending on the size of the group. Customers will enter through the front entrance and find the reception desk. The customers will sign a waiver and watch a short tutorial video. The employees will be walking around to ensure safety practices and available to the public on how to throw axes to the target. And the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of CEQA through Section 15301, existing facilities. Behind me, what you see is an aerial. The subject property is outlined in red. And to the east, I have identified residential properties. Planning staff has received noise concerns from adjacent residential neighbors located on La Brida Avenue, and I shall reference back to that shortly. The floor plan illustrates the 6 single lanes and a restroom in the back. The applicant has proposed single lane throwing as opposed to double lane throwing to ensure safety and prevent any accidents. Customers will share 1 axe per bay and shall have a chain link fence in between each bay. Furthermore, there are no exterior changes proposed. So there, if you look at the screen, you'll see that's where the 6 lanes will be, and the restroom in the far back there. I'm going to share an illustration of what axe throwing is, and there is some text you'll see at the bottom, and I will just paraphrase for you. So you place both hands on the axe, bring the axe back over your head, you lean back and bring the axe forward in a fast motion and release with your arms extended forward. Moving on to the noise concerns, as previously mentioned, we received noise concerns from residential neighbors. Planning staff has included 6 conditions of approval to reduce noise impacts. Such conditions as no noise amplifier, doors of the building shall be kept closed at all times, speakers to be directed toward the front of tenant space, and within the 6 months, we will call for a review and the community development director shall implement this review. In addition, the applicant has stated in the business operations plan that he will install soundproofing barriers and tiles to reduce potential noise impacts. Lastly, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution approving conditional use permit 19-02. That concludes my presentation, and the applicant is here and present and available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Commissioner Holtz.
For the applicant, but it looked like in the first or the slide you showed up there, right? Yeah, the one you had showing how to throw the axe. Are they wearing some kind of chest protectors when they go throw the axe? It looks like there's some kind of suspender system there.
There is no protective gear given to the customers. I believe that's just a visual of.
That's a lumberjack.
Yeah, a lumberjack with suspenders.
Well, that's the ones I've seen, yeah. Okay, I just wondered if they had some kind of protective vest on it. Thank you. But they don't, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other question? Commissioner Arquez?
Yes, since there is provisions that the applicant is going to follow to install some type of noise attenuating features inside the business, and there's going to also be a 6-month follow-up, as I understand from the report. Is there going to be any? Is this concern about noise? What what generated that concern, and is there going to be any need for any kind of independent, measuring of noise levels after they start up operation?
The conditions of approval in which we have identified in the resolution are they don't cover the noise protection. As I said, that the soundproofing, that is something that the applicant has stated that he is voluntarily willing to do. However, here tonight we could add conditions of approval that would state applicant shall install such materials to for soundproofing, and if damaged, it will be needed to be replaced. As far as practices measuring noise, planning staff doesn't follow those procedures.
Well, let me clarify a little bit there. First of all, the conditions of approval that are mentioned, there's no standard conditions for this type of use in the code, and there's not really a standard conditions for noise situation where there might be noise impacts. So it's kind of you have to look at the case and what's proposed and how close sensitive receptors are, sensitive places that might have concern about noise, and figure out there's a way to attenuate or reduce that noise. The noise is one of the most difficult things to measure, because even if trying to measure 5 decibels, what does that mean? Over an hour average? Does that mean at any 1 second? You know, so it's a very difficult thing to measure. It's not easy to measure. It's also not easy to measure something that doesn't exist yet, right? So how noisy is it going to be? Well, it doesn't exist yet, so we can't measure that noise. So what we try to do here is put some conditions on that allow us to address some of the simpler ways to address noise, keeping doors closed, keeping speakers face to the front of the building and not to the back, because the back is where the residential is. So that's kind of what we have suggested in these kind of circumstances. This is difficult circumstances. We do have difficult circumstances in other parts of the city where you have a corridor of commercial uses that's right butt up against single-family residences. That's not unusual in places like North Azusa or South Glendora or even South Sunset to have those situations. So we try to come up with conditions we think that will allow the use to go forward, at the same time try to protect the residents, because they both have certain rights, but they both have responsibilities to the other as well. So that's the reason. That's how we got where we are on the noise. I forgot your second. I think your second comment was on.
Well, I guess I was wondering what generated the concern in the first place. If is this type of business known for generating a lot of noise in the first place, or is it just more of a general concern from the adjacent residents?
Well, I think it's a concern from staff because we know how close the building is to residential, and then we did have a resident who expressed some concern about noise being generated from this use. So it came from both places.
Okay. So essentially this will be an adaptive process to see how things go, check it out, see if wait until there's potentially any complaints about noise and deal with it then?
Well, I would suggest right now ask the questions so we can get into any deliberations and figuring out where the consensus of the Planning Commission is to move forward, and we can offer some of those suggestions depending on what the Commission decides to do.
Thank you. Commissioner Holtz.
Yeah, maybe it'll help the Commission. I've personally observed this, not at this location, but other locations. And it was at a tournament, actually. The only noise was from the people, cheering on the acts. But as far as the noise from the acts, there really isn't anything, because it goes into like a big log, surface. So it just sticks in there, and they go up and take the acts out. So there's very little noise actually from the throwing of the axe, and I don't think they would have tournaments in there, people clapping, but without the people in the background, there's hardly any noise at all. So I personally observed that.
Thank you. I have a question regarding a couple of the conditions. Let's see. Condition F, it has a maximum of 2 employees are permitted at any time. I don't recall us ever conditioning a maximum amount of employees. So if they have 3, they're out of compliance?
Well, we do maximum employees. If you think about it, for a daycare, we usually have a maximum number of employees. Now, we got that number from the applicant too, so that's what they told us. So that could easily be raised if to allow for more leeway if that was important to the Planning Commission.
Yeah, it just concerns me that we're capping the number of employees that can be there. And also, I don't see where we have conditioned a minimum age. Do we not necessarily have to do that, or?
No, we don't have to do that. The Commission may want to do that, and we may want to hear from the applicant on that.
Reading their business plan, they indicate that, the target is 18 to whatever. So, yeah, maybe we could hear from them at that time. Any other questions of staff? Commissioner Haig, questions? No? Okay. All right. Mr. Fresina, would you like to come forward? It will be.
And forgive my notes here, I just don't want to miss anything also. First of all is the sound. So first of all, we have spoken to an audio engineer, and I've been advised on how to best take care of the sound, as well as I can. Which first, you put down a layer of foam padding, which is for sound, for to control it. And then you put foam over that, so it's 2 layers. And so that should sufficiently help more than most other businesses, because I know we're being compared to other places, but I haven't seen anybody put carpet down. I haven't seen anybody put soundproofing down. I haven't seen any, attempt to take care of that by anyone else, so it's hard to compare. And also our venue is much smaller than the average venue, so less targets, less people, less noise. I know that's not a big deal, but that should help with acoustics. And as far as, I think you had let's see. All right, so the age, all right, sorry, I wanted to get to that. So insurance won't take you unless you're 18 and above. And so anybody under 18 would not be allowed. But also we have 0 plans of doing alcohol, and I know other venues have done that before and actually are currently working on doing that for their venue. But we don't want to mix the two. I don't think it should be mixed. I don't know how an insurance company actually still insures you with that happening. So no food, no alcohol, and we're also going to have that in a provision saying that, if you are caught with alcohol or drugs or anything, you are evicted, immediately. There won't be any, you won't be standing for it. So also with the 2-person minimum, I didn't mean to specifically say 2 people. I meant at least 2. So if we get busier, obviously this is a new business, so if we become too busy and need extra people, then I have 0 problem, having that added.
So just quickly, could we change that to minimum instead of maximum?
That's just fine.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
You could do that, yes.
Great.
So that'll definitely help. And I know a concern was on people sneaking in alcohol or, any type of substance. I mean, I don't tolerate it, and I would hope my employees wouldn't tolerate it either, so that shouldn't even be a problem. So those are 2 things I wanted really to address. Another, we're planning on recycling the wood. I mean, I'm trying to be a little environmentally cautious here, and anything left over, I won't leave it outside. I would take it home, and then each week I found actually a recycling center that will take care of it for us, and then, it's no problem there. So as far as recycling and anything that's excess, let me see. To be honest, I think we covered most everything I'd written down.
There might be questions from the commission. Commissioner Holtz?
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that each stall is 6 foot 4 inches wide, which seems like it's plenty of width. Mm-hmm. What do you have on the walls?
Well, separating each bay, there will be about waist height of wood, and then the rest is chain link fence. But it completely divided, and also because we're doing 1 target per bay instead of the typical 2.
Right.
That's a big safety thing too, because
Right.
when you go to a typical place, you have to count to 3, and on 3 you both throw. I mean, that's kind of a safety issue as far as I'm concerned. So I wanted to take that also into account.
Why only wood? Only how do you say waist high?
Well, I guess it wouldn't matter. It's completely enclosed anyways, but yeah, about say 4 feet up would be chain link.
For a noise factor, wouldn't it be better with wood or something all the way up?
Actually, I do agree with that, and I would be open to making that change if that would help.
I think that would be a good idea.
And also, unrelated, but when you're throwing next to people and you don't know them, the
Right.
less they can see, the better. So
Right.
I
And there's no
always-
talking back and forth that way.
Oh, yeah, from different groups, yeah. Especially it's a
Okay.
new sport. No one
Yeah.
wants to
Okay.
be under
And
scrutiny.
you don't have a problem doing that?
No, not at all.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually,
Yeah. Commissioner Haig?
it seems like there's only a few stalls, so are you expecting how many people to be
There'd be a limit of 5 people per stall, and I don't plan on adding any more than the 6 lanes we already have. I mean, especially with the noise, and I'd like to keep sufficient waiting area and keep it comfortable.
Is it by the hours that you have to rent the stall? Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Holtz.
So you say 5, but where do these people sit when the person's throwing?
So there's a minimum of 5 feet behind the throwing area
Yeah.
for safety, but then there'd be a line of couches behind. There's enough room. We've done all the measurements.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. Is this the first one in LA County, or are there others in LA County?
There are 2 others that I'm aware of. One of them, I think they actually do alcohol. That's why I'm taken back by that, and I had to, at least speak to that. But there are 2.
And your background to
axe throwing?
Yeah, I mean business or axe
business,
throwing?
Axe throwing, I grew up in Tennessee, and it's not the most normal thing to do, but I've thrown a few axes in my day. So I'm not, I don't mean to talk down in Tennessee. But so as far as business, I lived in Las Vegas for 11 years, and probably 6 of those years I was in some type of management with nightlife. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure I can control the room fairly well. And I will be the only person, not the only, but I will be the manager there every day.
So you'll be on the premises
yes.
all the time? Okay. And I guess Commissioner Holtz kind of talked about this, but are there spectators?
Not necessarily, just your group of friends. Partially that's why you have the dividers, and I don't want people seeing next to them to, to see everyone's business or how bad they're throwing.
And I read something about something called impact boards. Is that something that some places use, or?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, you can use different types of wood for the target, but there's an axe throwing league that has specifications on what to use, and which is probably 3 layers of wood. But that's really all I could speak to.
So the boards are good for what, one session, and then
at least a couple of sessions.
sessions, and they got to be replaced. So that's the idea of recycling.
Yeah. And now to have them pre-cut and ready to go in, and then as they're done, I would just take them
Okay.
out myself.
And tournaments, things like that? No?
No tournaments. It'd be just for fun.
Okay. And you addressed, I had written down the old beer question and liquor question. You've answered that. So we're good. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Hawkes.
Okay, one last question is, does your business provide the axes to customers to throw?
Yes.
And will customers be allowed to bring in their own axes
Oh, no.
from outside?
Cannot bring in their own. And it'd be 1 axe per lane. I've had people ask me if everyone's going to be walking around with an axe. No, it's just, it's specifically, let's keep it safe. Let's keep it real safe. Yeah.
Oh, boy, I had to catch myself there. Okay, thank you.
I had one last question. Do you sell any merchandise? Do you sell, caps or mugs or axes?
We don't have any plans at the moment. Maybe as it goes on, it's possible, maybe shirts or something, but.
Okay. And what about this Varney Center where you're going? How did you arrive at West Covina and at that particular location?
We really like the town, like the city. I mean, the people that we've run into, and we've looked around at different venues and different places, but it just seemed like, first of all, it's off the interstate, it's a great location and walk by and all the traffic, and it just looks like a good spot for the community to have, that type of venue. But I really like West Covina. We're also looking into places to move to, so that was also why, because we like the area, so, it's good.
One last question.
Yeah, Commissioner Holtz.
You're not going to allow anybody to stand in the back of those lanes when they're throwing, are you?
No, there is at least 5 feet of clearance. That's kind of on the axe throwing leagues, their dimensions also to keep it safe. So everyone has to stay back, at the seating area.
So they can't stand there at the end of the stall and watch somebody throw.
I mean, I guess you could stand behind the couches because you'll have to go back and forth to get to other bays or the restroom. But
What's the distance between the target and where the person stands?
13 feet.
And how long are those stalls?
Oh, I'm sorry, 13 feet are the stalls, and then 5 feet between the group and the person throwing.
Okay, what's the distance between the target and where the people throws from?
That
Or
is
do
the
you
13.
move to different
No,
feet?
that's the 13 feet.
Oh, that's
Because honestly,
13 feet.
If you're too far too close, then it's not going to hit properly.
Okay, so 13 feet, and the length of the stall is what?
The length of the stall, well, I'm thinking the stall is where you're throwing. What do you mean the stall?
Well, where is the end of the stall?
Oh, so that's, you're pointing at where?
No, I know that's 6'4". I'm talking about the length of the stall.
Yeah, the length should be 13 feet, and then at the end of that red is where you're standing to throw the axe.
So you're standing at the end of the stall.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I think it would be kind of dangerous to have somebody able to stand at the end of the stall and watch a buddy throw. And somebody's a manager there, they won't let them do that?
No, well, we'll obviously have it taped off in an area where you're not allowed to be
Yeah.
while they're throwing, and that's going to be in the provision. What people have to sign is understanding the rules and how to be safe, because after all, they are throwing axes, and it needs to be, absolutely needs to be safe.
Well, the one I witnessed was, everything was very spacious and caution and safety-wise and all that. And I've been looking up on it, and it's becoming more and more popular. I even saw it on television one night.
Yeah, they're starting to have champion or competing on TV.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the gentleman while he's at the mic? No? Okay, yes,
I'd like
something
to
else?
add one more thing about the sound.
Yes.
I know that there's a neighborhood behind, and I personally wouldn't want to sit in my backyard and hear anything going on, whether it's someone yelling because they hit a target or whatever it is. So I'm more than open to adding more soundproofing or doing whatever I can to make it, comfortable for everybody, because I know that's, I don't want to just be making money there. I want to be part of the community and happy to be there, and everyone else happy that we're there. So, we're going to put soundproofing on the ceiling, the back wall, especially facing the neighborhood, and the wall behind also. But I am more than willing to comply if, anything changes along the way.
Appreciate that. Thank
Yeah,
you
of
very
course.
much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of item number 2?
Good.
Nope. I have one card against. Kim Sutliff.
Good evening. To lose those. We went out to the one in Upland also. We went out to the Upland one on Saturday when they, an hour or so after they opened, and it was a quiet day, but you can see the distance where we were parked to where they were. We did take some audio, and I gave the planning department a flash drive with the noise. Mr. Holtz, you went to a tournament. They hit the targets at tournaments. Amateurs tend to hit the floor more. So we could hear from where we were parked. I went back at 8:30 that night, and it was still quite audible. Noise is my biggest issue. We live with Zumba back there, which is a constant vibration in our home. I don't want to hear obscenities and bursts of yelling and the thuds in our homes either. He's addressed a lot of it. I'm thrilled. If I don't hear you back there, I don't care. My concern, these people have chairs outside for extra. I'm hoping that he won't put chairs in the alley, which would promote possibly slide drinking. And this is indoors. Way in the back where the red Jeep is, that's where their door is. We're only an alley away from this building. This is at least 3 to 4 street widths to where we were hearing the noise. So say, noise is our biggest issue. He addressed with the floor, more the cinder block wall is tough to insulate. Again, that's my biggest concern. If you say we don't hear him, more power to you. You want to be Jon Snow, run amok. The 6-month review is nice, but it's after the fact. If we have 6 months of noise, as we learned 11 years ago with the recycling center, it is thousands of residents' hours to get that revoked and makes our life a living hell. As I say, noise is just our biggest issue. So the other things he addressed, we have the fish store back there that they're there at least 3 nights a week till 2 or 3 a.m. breaking up styrofoam boxes. We live with that. So 7 days a week of this till 9 p.m., if we hear it, is not quality living. So that's my biggest thing. We don't have a lot of industrial space. I don't know if he looked at it over in West Covina. We keep trying to put housing everywhere in the city, so we don't have much industrial. That's, as I say, he's addressed a bunch of the stuff. I hope it works. Businesses aren't easy. Couple of links that I sent to the city in an email to YouTubes where, I mean, this brings, it's camaraderie for guys and women who do it. If I were in the demographic group, I'd probably risk losing a digit to try it, but I'm not. People get together, sporting events, there's yelling, there's obscenities. We have families in the back. So I say, insulate the bejesus out of it so we don't hear you. And all the power to you. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sutliff. That's the only card. Yes, Angie Gillingham, come forward, please.
I just want a couple of comments, and I'll submit this. He answered, and you asked questions to answer. 6 stalls, the room occupancy. I'd like to know how many people can be in the room at one given time. He also stated there will be sofas, like an L-shaped sofa. The wait time, he will accommodate how many of the population, that goes with the occupancy. How many people on staff are 2. The other thing is, right in that same strip mall, there is a liquor store and then the dairy that sells alcohol. How will he monitor individuals coming in? I mean, certainly they can go down there, drink, and then they're going to want to enter, I guess. And especially if they're lumberjacks, you know, he's going to have to overpower them on alcohol, because that's what we saw up there. Anyways, so he did answer, and I'm here just for the concerned residents who sometimes don't like to get out and speak, but if I lived there, that wouldn't be something I would like to have people gathering and the loitering of it. And so you guys have all asked great questions, but just could we answer a few more by him? And he sounds like he's willing to accommodate, so if we can just ask those few questions, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition to this item? Seeing none, Mr. Fresina, would you like to come back and address these issues, please?
As far as anybody loitering out back, we'll have the door closed, and I have no intention of having anyone out there. No chairs, nothing, shouldn't even be for that option. As far as the occupancy, so 6 times 5, that's 30. I wouldn't imagine many more people being in there than that many groups. I mean, I don't want to turn people away, but you can't have a crazy, crowded place like that, especially with axes. So that, maybe you'd have to talk to the fire marshal or whomever that could tell us occupancy and things like that, or what would be, permissible. I'm okay. Same with that. I'm okay with complying on whatever, needs to happen. As far as the people drinking, people can do what they want on their own time, I guess. I can't stop someone from going around the corner to the liquor store, but I can stop them from either acting inappropriately inside or bringing it inside. I mean, you have to really conceal something to drink in front of me and not see that you're doing so. So, I mean, we will be enforcing, but, yeah, I can't control that there's a liquor store there, but do my best. There might have been something else to address, but...
I think that was it.
Yeah.
Anything else? No? Oh, Commissioner Holtz.
I guess out of curiosity, what do you charge?
It's going to be $25 per hour, per person per hour.
Okay, can you do it for less than an hour? Like a half hour?
I haven't considered that, but it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, it's up to you. I mean, I don't care. It just seems like an hour throwing an axe is a long time.
I'll be honest, because one of our first times going for the hour, about the end of the hour, I was getting a little sloppy. And not sloppy is, falling over, just my arms being a little tired because it's, it takes a little bit out of you. So you have a point, actually.
Okay. And one other thing, what are they throwing into? Is it a log?
Some of them have logs, but what we are going to do is there are 2x4s. There's 6 of them in a row by 4 feet, and then there's wood behind that to take the impact.
Okay,
But-
so it's kind of soft wood then?
Correct.
Okay.
There's certain types of wood that are better than others.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'll close the, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Close the public testimony portion of the public hearing. Mr. Director, any?
Let me
to add?
cover a couple of things before you start the discussion. With occupancy, that's done by building official, and it's based on exiting and how close things are. There's some specific things. So that's not usually done till the time when they're going through some kind of tenant improvement. And also that has to be posted. So it will be on the wall. It has to be on the wall. So that's something to keep in mind. But we never know that at this point because they haven't done the plans to that specification. I want to talk a little bit about the 6-month review because Ms. Sutliff brought it up and she made some excellent points on that. And I think it's worth understanding the 6-month review. It's a good tool. It's a good tool to allow the Planning Commission to review what's happening, and really it allows you to add conditions or modify conditions if things are going bad or good. You know, it could go either way. But it is important to understand that once you approve a permit, that the only way to take that away is through a revocation process. And Ms. Sutliff knows very well what that's like, and she explained it very well. It's a difficult process, so I do want you to understand that. So the 6-month review isn't there to say, oh, it's got problems, so we're going to take away your ability to operate. That's not the process to take away their ability to operate. And the 6-month review is not required by code. It's just staff's suggestion. There can be other time frames or multiple time frames that you utilize. So I did want to put those out there. In listing, I might have, depending on how the Planning Commission wants to move forward, I might have some suggested conditions of approval as the applicant spoke and as the Planning Commission asked questions.
Thank you. Yeah, in light of that and what Ms. Sutliff brought up, and I was on the commission 11 years ago too, and we had that issue with the little recycling center in your neighborhood. I was thinking, as far as the review, that there's a 6-month review done by the community development director. I would propose that we have a review by the Planning Commission 12 months after that 6-month review. So in other words, 18 months from the date of opening. Within the first 6 months, you would have the review with the director. And then 12 months after that, there would be a review that would be scheduled, not something that would be a reaction, but a scheduled review that would be in front of the Planning Commission, unless the only thing that would preclude that would be if there were some issues that arose, that, there's some, grievous issue that needed to be addressed. But other than that, I would propose having a 12-month review after the 6, in other words, 18 months into it. That would be my suggestion.
And we can easily change that to a Planning Commission review too. It doesn't have to just be Planning Community Development Director review. So either way you want to go on that, we can.
I'm fine with going to the Planning Commission for 6 months too. Any discussion on that? Commissioner Holtz?
Well, I'm thinking if we don't have any complaints or anything from the neighbors or whatever, we don't really need to do it in 12 months. I mean, but if we don't have any complaints. We have some complaints, I can see doing it. But if we don't get any complaints or anything, what's the sense of reviewing it again?
Well, we can write it that way too. We can write it to be determined if further review is required after the 6-month review. So if as you're speaking, what might suggest is a 6-month review by the Planning Commission, and after that point to determine if further review is necessary.
That sounds good.
Commissioner Hang?
Also, regarding the sound issues, while you're building, you might want to consider putting special drywalls in there because it really can bring down the decibel of noise level. So you might want to consider that. And that might help the neighborhood, because if there's a crowd of 30 people cheering on, that can get pretty rowdy. So,
Yes, Commissioner Hawkins.
Jeff, what characterizes what occurs in the 6-month review done by Community Development Director?
And it can vary a little bit, but what we would normally do is we would bring back a report to the Planning Commission under a non-hearing item, but we'd probably do some type of notification. That would probably be at cost to the city. But bring it back, it's a non-hearing item because there's nothing necessarily to be decided. It's more about the condition of approval. And so it allows us to review, see if we check with police, we check with code enforcement, we check with fire, see if there's been any issues there. We bring that information to you. We notify the neighbors. They can come and speak if they feel there are issues. And generally, in my experience, if there are issues, we already know about them, right? Because the residents have been contacting us or code enforcement, and code enforcement has been contacting us. So usually if there's problems, we already know that there's problems. But you guys don't know that. So the commission is the one who's sort of made aware of things. And it also, just like this, people are invited to come and they can speak how they think it's being operated and what things could be done that would reduce impacts.
I'm wondering if 6 months in this case might be a bit long before we might know of certain issues that arose, and rather than let something that has come up linger for too long.
There's no magic number there. It's I think a discussion by the Planning Commission to come up with what they think is the appropriate length of time.
Yeah, I think he needs to build up a clientele, and that's not going to happen overnight because it's something that's very new, so.
Well, let me just say, I mean, I'm comfortable with 6 months. I think Commissioner Holtz makes a good point too. This is a brand new, this is uncharted territory. And it's going to take a little time to develop the business and develop the clientele. But I also don't have a problem with I'm going to kind of stick with my suggestion of we do a review 12 months after that. Because as we just heard, typically these reviews are 5 minutes. You just get a report, and that's it. We just get an update. And we move on. It's a non-hearing item. It's not really formal. It takes 5 minutes, and we're done. And I also kind of like the idea that the operator knows that there's a review. So they will maybe, be a little bit more attentive. Not that this gentleman sounds like he's got his fingers on the pulse of his business, but it doesn't hurt to know that, I got a review coming up. So I would stick with that, and I would like to, see that made as one of the conditions. And anything else? We're good?
Perhaps, as I heard some discussion, maybe we could add some further conditions. Well, first of all, we probably need to have some discussion on whether we want to change the way that the number of employees is written, and on condition F. We have it as a maximum. You want to have a minimum. Or something different. What I would also suggest, based on testimony there, that customers have to be 18 or above. Second, no food, alcohol, or I'm going to put marijuana in there too since it's legal. Marijuana, and we can put any other type of drugs, but those are illegal. But no food, alcohol, or marijuana allowed inside the business. The wood that's used for the targets shall be recycled. And maybe off-site and stored off-site. And what I mean by that is not outside. He volunteered to put the lanes with wood paneling going to the ceiling. Customers cannot provide their own axes. They must use axes provided by the operator. No furniture in the alley allowed. No access of customers to the alley allowed. The operator shall monitor customers this one, I'm not sure how to word this exactly, monitor customers to ensure not inebriated or under influence of drugs or alcohol. And then there's been some discussion about noise dampening. And so we probably, Mr. Facina's done some research on that. And so maybe the thing to do is, and he talked about foam on foam, basically, which is probably going to be thicker than drywall. I'm assuming we're talking, you may want to hear from him what he's talking about with that. I don't think he's talking about an inch of foam. I think it's thicker. But you may want to get from him where he's planning on putting that, and so you can condition that it be placed in those locations. So those are the things that I see, and then maybe this drywall is a good idea on the back, but might want to hear from him because he's done some research on that. So those are suggested conditions of approval, and then so the two things we want to hear consensus on the Planning Commission about how they want to the periodic review, how they want that worded, and then secondarily on the staffing changes. And that can be done as part of a motion or it can be done as part of discussion.
Did the applicant say that he didn't want any food or drink in there? You don't want?
He doesn't want food or drink in there,
No potato chips or anything like that? Okay.
unless you bring him. Other than that, no. Commissioner Hing?
I'd like to add that if there's a door in the back, perhaps maybe keep it closed at all time.
Yes, there is a door at the back, and that is a good condition. It's under K on the conditions of approval right now.
All right, come on. No, you have to come up here to do it.
That means like no speaker system for them over, but then speakers to be pointed toward the front. So is that for music? I mean, it's kind of a contradiction. I wasn't. You should be addressing the well, and then he can answer. Okay. Yeah. So that's my question. Like, I mean, we have Zumba that shouldn't be mic'd, and they are every day, and they're supposed to have their doors closed, and they're not. So I'm kind of confused with no amplification, but then speakers to be pointed toward the front. So, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't like to mix loud music with people throwing axes. I mean, if anything, we'd have something quiet in the background. But if you can hear the music, then you can probably hear everything else. So that shouldn't really be much of an issue. But one thing I actually forgot to address before was not only we're going to have carpet down, but in the lanes we're going to have fake grass. So when the axe falls, if it does fall, it won't be falling on concrete or anything that'll be making the clinking sound. So that should help also. But if we are allowed to have music, I would like to have it, but it's not going to be at any volume that would be, louder than someone speaking. It is, after all, someone has to concentrate, throwing an axe. So no crazy atmosphere.
And typically the no amplification is people talking.
Okay, discussion on the, we want to change it to minimum of 2 employees. Are we all good on that? Okay, we're good on that. And as far as the review, are we good on my suggestion or is there another suggestion? We're good on that? Okay, then, are you good?
Why don't you go ahead and take a motion and then
Okay,
second?
we are ready we need to have the heading of the resolution number, right?
The resolution number well, first of all, this is a conditional use permit. The resolution number is 19-5982.
Do I hear a motion? Motion by Holtz to approve.
Second.
Second by Jaquez. Any further discussion? Nope.
So let me just clarify what the
Yes.
conditions of approval that we'd add, and he just suggested another one, which is fake grass be installed on the lane, so I'll add that one. 6-month review by the Planning Commission with potential, 6-month review by the Planning Commission and an 18-month review. That's generally after they get a business license.
18 months from the
Date of the business
initial.
license.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
And then staffing minimum of 2 employees at all times, 18 and above, no food, alcohol, or marijuana on the premises, recycle wood not stored on site, wood panels separating complete floor-to-ceiling wood panels separating the lanes. Customers cannot provide their own access, no furniture in the alley, no access of customers to the alley. The operator shall monitor customers to ensure they're not inebriated or under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and then fake grass on the surface of the lane. There was no discussion at this point on noise attenuation, where you'd like that. So I don't know if you want to just let him do that, or you want to provide some specificity.
I think he has more experience than we do on that.
I think we should add something to it, because there are things that you can do, especially when they build apartments. They have noise issues that he can actually address that currently right now when he's building it out, versus if we were to visit, a few months later and we have that noise issues, then we will revisit this whole, thing again. So there are, like I said, there are special drywall that can really bring down the decibel in terms of noise projecting toward the resident side. So if you can just, take care of that wall, that might help a lot. And all the noises, even if there's speakers, if you project it toward the front, away from the resident, that might also help as well.
So is that something we need to add in the conditions, or?
It's up to you.
What do you want to do?
It's a planning commission
Want to add
decision.
that?
Yeah, I like that.
Any discussion on that, or are we good?
So noise attenuation, so I would not be specific on how to do it, because he's talked to someone and he didn't, I realize what you're
Right.
saying, Commissioner Hing. I'm not saying you're wrong.
No,
I'm
no.
saying he offered a different way to do it
Right.
than what you're offering.
As long as they bring down the decibel,
Okay.
that's,
And so that would be what I would suggest. You put that on the back wall and the side walls. Is that, well, Herb, would you like to hear?
Yes, I would. Come up, sir.
I'm not against doing that at all. That would almost be a good idea behind the paneling, the soundproofing. So what it is, it's like a flat sheet, a vinyl sheet, and then foam padding goes over that. So if you did have extra wood, I could see that helping also. So maybe we'll put that up, then the foam padding on top of that, so an extra layer. But I'm not opposed to it.
You're okay on the rear?
Yeah, especially on the rear facing the neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's concrete, so it shouldn't be a big deal.
I don't think it's necessary to put it on the side walls, but on the back wall, definitely.
Good. Okay. That's good. Thank you.
Okay?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let me just say very quickly before we do the vote, Mr. Fresina, thank you very much. I appreciate your willingness to listen and to work with the neighbors. It's a pleasure, really. Your attitude is fantastic, and I think with your personal attention to that business, it's going to be very successful and run properly. And we thank you for that. And welcome, and we wish you the best of success. Can we have a roll call, please, on the motion?
Yes, Commissioner Holtz. Aye. Commissioner Hing.
Aye.
Commissioner Jaquez. Aye. And Chairman Redholz.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. This action is final unless appealed to the City Council within 10 days. Thank you, good luck, and we'll see you there with an axe, okay? I know.
Actually, can we ask one of the residents?
I'm sorry.
What?
Who do you want to add?
Okay, we're going to move on. Okay, item number 3 on the agenda, the public hearing, zone change number 19-01, a general exemption. The applicant is the City of West Covina. The location is 1904 West Pacific Lane. We have a request to change the zoning designation of 1904 West Pacific Lane from single-family residential R1 to multiple-family residential MF20. Mr. Anderson.
Our planning manager, Joanne Burns, will be presenting the report.
Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Chair and members of the Planning Commission. I would like to start off with a brief background on the zone change. During the October 2, 2018 City Council public hearing for a 7-unit development on 1920 West Pacific Lane. The property owner of 1904 West Pacific Lane pointed out that the zoning for the subject property was not consistent with the immediate adjacent properties. Then on February 5th, 2019, the City Council adopted a resolution initiating a zone change to change the zoning designation of 1904 West Pacific Lane from single-family residential to multiple family residential, which is an MF20 zoning. On March 12th of this year, the Planning Commission held a study session on the proposed zone change and directed staff to schedule this public hearing. Here is the vicinity map. The subject property is located on the south side of Pacific Lane in between West Pacific Avenue and North Orange Avenue. The zone change would make the zoning designation of 1904 West Pacific Lane consistent with the MF20 zoning designation of the adjacent properties located on the south, east, and west of the subject site. The areas that are darker color orange is the MF20 zoning on the map, and the yellow shaded area is the R1 zoning. Is R1 zoning, which the subject property is zoned as. The subject property is the zoning consistency of the subject property with the surrounding properties on the east and west and south side of the subject property is due to an individual zone changes approved in the late 1950s through the early 1960s of the surrounding parcels. These parcels were changed from R1 to R3. The R3 zoning designation was later changed to the MF20 zoning in June 1972. So these surrounding parcels were applications for a zone change were filed in the late 1950s and early 1960s for them. That's why the zoning designation of the subject lot is different from the zoning designation of the surrounding properties. A zone change application at the time was not filed for the subject property. Here is a photograph of the neighborhood setting. This house in blue right here where the arrow's pointed, this is the subject property. And as you can see, there's condominium buildings to the side and also the rear of the subject lot. And there is a single-family residential to the west side of the subject lot. That is also zoned MF20. On the other side of the property directly to the west of the subject lot is going to be a new multifamily development that was just approved by the City Council. Across the street from the subject lot are single-family residential projects. With that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending approval of Zone Change 19-01. Jeff and I are available if the Planning Commission has any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? No questions of staff. I have no cards on this item. Anybody wish to be heard on this? I think we do. Just come on up and state your name, please, for us.
And I approve of this zone change. Any questions?
You approve of it, do you?
I do.
I am shocked.
Are you?
How long have you lived there?
Since 1980.
Okay, very good. So this will put you into the right zone.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions of the lady while she's there? No? No? Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. All right. Yes, Commissioner Holtz.
You know, we've talked about this, it seems like it's going on a couple of years now, and seeing that the lady that owns the house has no objection to it, I'd just like to cut to the chase and make a motion to approve it. I don't know that we need to beat it up anymore.
That's certainly a good idea. Is there a second to the motion? We have a motion and a second. Any comment from staff?
Comment would be that the resolution number would be
Yes.
19-5983.
That's the motion and the second. Any discussion by the commission? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Holtz.
Aye.
Commissioner Hing. Aye. Commissioner Jaquez. Aye. And Commissioner Redholz.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0, and this goes to the city council, right?
Yes,
For final
we will
action.
schedule it for the city council, and once they make a decision, hopefully in approval, then there'll be a second reading, it'll go through a process.
Very good. Thank you. All right. We have now made it to item number 4, which is a code amendment, number 19-01, general exemption. The applicant, Brian Jackson, for Replanet, citywide location. Mr. Anderson, the staff report will be presented by whom?
Planning Manager Joanne Burns.
Thank you. Joanne?
Good evening again, Chair, members of the Commission. Again, with the background for the the proposed zone change, on January 10th, the city received a written request from Replanet Representative Paige Gosney to consider amending the code section pertaining to small recycling facilities. Replanet operates a small recycling facility at 1025 East Amar Road that they are trying to get permitted. On February 12th, the Planning Commission initiated a code amendment to the West Covina Municipal Code pertaining to the development standards for small recycling facilities. On March 12th, the Planning Commission held a study session. During the study session, staff presented the Planning Commission with information on the location of small recycling facilities within the center and what other markets are doing to address the state's beverage container recycling mandate. On the projector is the proposed changes to Section 26-685.931 of the West Covina Municipal Code. The proposed change includes a reduction in the minimum distance requirements from residential zones and uses from 250 feet to 150 feet if the site is separated from residential by an arterial street. And also a reduction in the anchor market size from 30,000 square feet to 25,000 square feet. Staff has been working with the city attorney in preparing this proposed text change. With this, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending approval of Code Amendment 19-01 to the City Council. If the Planning Commission has any questions, Jeff and I are available, and also the applicant is here in the audience.
Thank you, Joanne. Any questions of staff from the commission? Nope. Mr. Gosney, one more time.
Thank you, Chairman Redholz, members of the commission. Appreciate being back before you again tonight. I just wanted to thank staff for the great job that they did on drafting the code amendment. The language that's being proposed before you tonight, I think, is consistent with what we discussed at the original Planning Commission meeting, and then again at the study session last month. And I'm available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Gosney? Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, what is the pleasure of the commission? We have gone over this, we've had the study sessions, we know what's going on. Any discussion or a motion? What do you think?
I'll think, unless there's any additional comment or
You know what,
discussion.
I do have a question, I'm sorry, I just
Please do.
thought maybe Jeff can kind of walk us through. I mean, once this goes through, it appears that there's support. Then what happens?
Okay, well, so the Replan at this location originally came to us with the submittal of an administrative use permit, which is what's required to have a small recycling center. So we started processing it and realized that it didn't meet our code specifications. We met with them. They decided to go ahead and submit this code amendment request. We've gone through the process with the Planning Commission. The code amendment obviously has to go to City Council for approval, and then just like the zone change before, it has to have a second reading. And then any code amendment would take place 30 days after that. So we will need, once this is approved, we will still need to go through the administrative use permit process, which requires notification of the neighbors. It's a staff level review unless a neighbor requests a hearing to the Planning Commission, but we would do that at the conclusion of that City Council review and adoption. We couldn't approve the administrative use permit until after any code amendment took effect. So that's how the process would work. And then following that, Mr. Gosney will ensure that Replanet gets a business license this time, so they make sure that they can stay in business as they move forward.
Which is good, because I went by the other day and they got a big banner, now hiring. So that's good. More jobs. Okay, Commissioner Jaquez, ready to make your motion?
Yes.
Or we need the reading of the numbers. What's the motion?
Yes, I propose, I make a motion to adopt the resolution and hear the reading on the number of the motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right. And the number would be, the resolution number would be 19-5984.
Very good. We have a motion and a second on that resolution number. Any further discussion? Nope. Let's have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Holtz?
Aye.
Commissioner Hing?
No.
Commissioner Jaquez?
Aye.
And Chairman Redholz.
Aye. The motion passes 3-1. Final action on this matter will take place at a public hearing before the City Council on a date to be determined. Thank you for coming again, Mr. Gosney, and we'll see you. Thank you. All right, we have no non-hearing items. We are at the point of continuation of oral communications. Mr. Carmody, anything else, sir? No, okay. All right, commission reports, comments, and miscellaneous items. Any commissioner wish to enlighten us with any songs or anything? No? Okay. Then we'll go on to the Community Development Director's report.
On tonight's report, the only thing we really have is the forthcoming items. I did have an issue there with something I put on there. We do have a discussion scheduled for on the Code Amendment 1801, which was for ABC at service stations. We have that down as a public hearing. It's not a public hearing. Planning Commission has to give us direction. It's a non-hearing, but it'll be a study session at the next meeting. We do have a hearing for the other conditional use permit at that meeting. So we have 2 items scheduled for that meeting. That's 23rd, correct. And that concludes any comments I have.
City Council action?
Nothing to report on City Council action.
If there are no objections, we're adjourned.